Hello, human peoples. You're listening to the podcast network of Gamefully Unemployed. To support us and gain access to great exclusive podcasts like Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and our latest show, Spiel Boys, head over to patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. We do game streaming, movie nights with our patrons every Friday night, and you can even commission your own podcast about anything you want. Literally anything, within reason, and we have to do it. You are quite frankly out of excuses not to go visit patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. That's patreon.com/GAMEFULLY unemployed, which is spelled like it sounds.
Hi, everybody.
Hello, everyone.
My name is David Bell.
My name is Tom Ryman.
And we just watched Wendell and also Wild.
Wendell in addition to Wild.
Directed by Tim Burton.
Tim Burton's Wendell and Wild, directed by Henry Selick.
I know what you are, Cat. You're a Hell Maiden. But it has to be our secret. That's how I can protect you.
Protect me from what?
Your demons.
Whoa! I'm having a vision! A green-headed girl. She seems so real. Greetings. We are the magician morticians, the artistes of the afterlife. So, as your masters, we order you to turn around and,
Yeah, I wanna start with something, Tom.
Yeah.
I want to start with a quote
Sure.
by Tim Burton.
Uh-huh.
When asked why isn't his movies diverse, he said, started with, things either call for things or they don't. This is the quote. I remember back when I was a child watching the Brady Bunch, and they started to get all politically correct. Like, okay, let's have an Asian child and a black. I used to get more offended by that than just ... I grew up watching blaxploitation movies, right? And I said, that's great. I didn't go like, okay, there should be more white people in these movies. End quote. So, he kind of sucks.
When was that quote?
This is from this is from 2016.
Oh, that's too recent.
Yep. So that's a real fucking shame. So I wanted to start with that because Henry Selick kind of came out recently and it was like, fuck Tim Burton. I don't think he said it like that. But he basically was like, I hate that he gets credit for Nightmare Before Christmas, and he's right.
Yeah. In fairness, the Tim Burton, I don't think had too much to do with that. That's all Disney marketing.
Oh yeah, for sure. But
yeah,
I guess I wanted to start with that because this is a very diverse movie, and I don't think that's an accident because it's basically like, hey, look, it's Tim Burton aesthetic, and we didn't like force diversity. You prick.
I mean,
like I don't know if it was an answer to that.
I wouldn't call this Tim Burton aesthetic.
Yeah, that's true. That's actually not fair to Henry Selick.
Yeah, just because it's stop motion. Like, the look doesn't look like Nightmare Before Christmas. It's not like the same kind of weird gothic shit that Tim Burton does.
Yeah, I guess it's more that Henry Selick has been lumped in with Tim Burton.
Yeah.
For that reason. And I would agree with you where Henry Selick has his own aesthetic.
Yeah.
But yeah, I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah.
And kind of makes me not like Tim Burton.
Yeah, that's
a really bad quote.
It's a pretty I don't want to say classic boomer take, but it's like almost like the standard boomer take.
It is.
I'm like, well, why shoehorn in diversity? It's like, so what do you? So you're saying all white casts are the baseline? Is that what you're saying? Like
exactly.
that's a quote unquote normal movie without making that isn't making a. It's an extremely boomer thing to say that including a person of color is a political statement.
Right, and I'm not saying this movie is a response to that, but rather that this movie is kind of that it's showing like, no, you can just have a diverse cast. You don't even have to point it out.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Like there's a trans character in this, and it's not a plot point. It's not.
I actually really want to talk about that because there's something that happens with. Okay, I really want to talk about that. So let's actually get into this movie.
Right. Yeah. First of all, Tom, how did you like Wendell and Wild?
I thought this movie was extremely okay.
Okay. No, you go.
Just to finish my thought. I love the way it looks. It's so gorgeous. I like seeing how much Henry Selick, and I assume I should have looked into it, but I would assume he's using at least some of the same animators that he's used on like Coraline and Nightmare Before Christmas.
One imagines.
The work has evolved so much since Nightmare Before Christmas that, I mean, that movie still is gorgeous too, but you can look back at it and compare it to Wendell and Wild, and you're like, Jesus, this has come a long way.
There's like flexes in this.
Yeah.
Like where he's like doing these shots where it's like, oh, you're showing off right now. Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
I think the script is bad.
Yeah. So
Which is a shock because it's Jordan Peele that wrote it.
Yeah, I'm on the fence. I would say I don't think the script is terrible, but I do think there's a lot of sweaty ass moments. A lot of bad moments in terms of the actual plot.
Yeah.
I think the point of the movie is crystal clear in that it's about reform and the prison industrial complex. Mm-hmm. And I appreciate that. Yeah. I think there's some turns in it character-wise that don't make much sense. Specifically, the big ass demon. Specifically,
the big ass demon and Siobhan, the mean girl. Like,
yeah, Ving Rhames and Siobhan. Yeah,
they're the big demon. I had less of a problem with. Siobhan, I really had a problem with because it's totally it's totally unearned. And
I had the opposite.
The reason I wanted to talk about when you mentioned the trans character, she misgenders the trans character, dead names the trans character on purpose. This.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, I missed that.
Yeah. She's talking to Raul, and she calls him Ramona, I think.
No shit.
And then makes a big show about being apologetic for it. And we never come back to that. We just have her she's like, oh, well, I believe in my mom and dad because they're running these private prisons and they're going to be good because they're going to have good reforms and work placement programs. So she thinks her parents are building a good reform-minded prison when it's actually just what all private prisons are, as a money suck. She's like, oh, I'm going to fight against my parents, and she's just one of the cast at the end. But they never address her cruelty in the beginning. Like, they never address that. They never go back to it. They never have a teachable moment about it. She just dead names Raul just to be cruel, and we never come back to it. And then she gets to have this positive character turn in the end. That's like one of a few examples of this movie being really uneven for me.
That's really interesting. I completely missed that.
Yeah.
And having missed the dead naming part, everything else, she's actually pretty consistent in that I think she's supposed to she's supposed to portray the person who means well, but isn't on the right track, right?
Right. I think so, yeah.
I appreciated the fact that they tried to do that a lot. Like, you expect, like, the moment, we should probably mention the plot. It's about a little girl whose parents die horribly, and they drown in a car. They
get Beetlejuiced.
Yeah, they get super Beetlejuiced. You're right. Yeah. And she survives and goes through the the orphan machine, as we all call it.
Because her wealthy parents, for some reason, left no money to her in their will.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't think of them as wealthy either.
Well, he owns a brewery that is the lifeblood of the whole town.
Right, but the brewery then burns down
after they die. That's true. Yeah, that's true. So maybe all their money got tied up in paying out.
Yeah, and I also kind of felt like the brewery is like a small business still. Like, it's a brewery, yeah. But it's not they're not rich.
That's another.
You're right.
That's another.
Very.
It's another.
Lucrative.
Yeah, it's another part of my sort of complaint about the movie feeling really uneven. It's like the first time we see them, her parents are they're at this fair celebration in front of their brewery. It's a huge brewery. It's a huge celebration. He gets off the phone saying he's not going to sell to the Klaxon company, who is the evil prison corporation. Right. And her mom has just I forget, like, it just invested or done something. So it's clear that they're both like big pillars of the community. He seems to have, like, the brewery seems to be a huge business. But then we hear that she like immediately, like, she didn't get to go to her parents' memorial because she was immediately in the system. And that's like, okay, that's weird. And then like they show that they have this very, very tiny house, just like in the same neighborhood as everybody. It's like, I don't know. It seemed like they wanted her to be Bruce Wayne, but also to come from humble beginnings at the same time. It was really confusing.
Yeah. I chopped it up to just Disney rules.
Sure.
Even though this isn't a Disney film.
Right.
Where
it's fairy tale rules. That's fair.
Yeah. That was sort of where I came from immediately. The moment they orphaned her, I felt like, oh, it's kind of a Disney film.
Yeah.
You know, you got to orphan them immediately.
Yeah.
So, like, thinking of it through that lens, I guess a lot of that I just wasn't thinking about it ultimately, but you're right.
The only reason I sort of fixated on it is the most uneven part of this movie, I think, is the first 25 minutes, because they unload a lot of plot on you. There's like 5 subplots in this movie.
Oh, yeah. The whole demon hunting stuff is like wild.
Yeah, there's way too much going on in this movie, I think. But like they front load a lot of the setup for it. So like seriously, the first 20 or so minutes is just scene after scene of sweaty exposition. So it's like I'm being bombarded with all of this information, and I'm trying to like figure out like, okay, where are they trying to get me so that the story can start? So I'm like trying to connect all these dots of logic, so I'm on like the correct, you know, so they've brought me up to speed enough so that they can start telling the story. And it's just, so that's why I fixated on that, because I was trying to parse through all this information the movie throws at you in the beginning.
I don't think you're wrong. I think Henry Selick, in comparison to his other movies, I would say this one is a little inelegant. And what I mean by that, I don't even know if that's the right word for it. In terms of the writing, in terms of the plot, because you look at Nightmare Before Christmas, where it's like all the holidays are their own worlds, and you're like, got it, we're good to go.
Yeah.
Coraline, it's like, oh, okay, it's a weird haunted house they're moving in, and then there's a secret door that brings you to another dimension, and it's like, okay, got it, I got the rules, we're going through. And this one is a lot more grounded in a real world, and it's trying to say more. So like the end when they're like protesting these like bulldozers, it felt like, oh, this isn't as like magical. Like
the bulldozers are being driven by reanimated skeletons.
They are.
But yeah,
but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Where it doesn't feel as like a fairy tale. It doesn't feel as poetic. But I think that's part of the point, because it's supposed to be about reality.
Yeah,
more than those other films.
To an extent, I still got like a Fantastic Mr. Fox fairy tale feel. From the whole, even from the first 20 minutes where they're setting everything up, she
gets orphaned.
Yeah, it's clearly like a town that's like a little bit magical, not quite the real world. But I guess what I'm saying is that because they're having more complex message, the movie is more complex than like Coraline or Nightmare Before Christmas, that are just telling these very basic. I don't want to say basic, but very like... Well, more simple, like more straightforward.
A little more simple, straightforward. And so like this got a little more clustered because they wanted to talk about a lot more stuff.
Yeah, I do think there's something where you say, I don't quite think inelegant's the right term either. But
no, I don't think so either. But you know what I mean.
Yeah, I know what you mean, because there's a couple of instances, and it's mostly... There's like some real clunky narration in this too, which is also a little bit confusing because the perspective keeps shifting.
Right.
But like this movie does a lot of telling instead of showing, and then it'll show you the thing it just told you.
Right.
So I was a little like, those are like my hangups with the movie. Like I think the movie's gorgeous. It was fun to watch, but like the story is real clunky. I feel like it's a little bloated. And I think it's not as efficiently told, maybe. I don't know. Yeah,
I think the target audience won't care about any of that.
Sure.
Being children.
Yeah.
Like, I do think this movie is like successful at what it's trying to do, but it definitely, like we're the same way. We're both thinking in terms of like screenplay and writing. So it's like when you look at it that way, like I had a lot of times where I could just sort of sit back and enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think it's clunkier in general. So the idea, and again, it's because there's a lot of moving pieces. So this girl is orphaned.
Yeah.
She gets to this she gets back to her hometown, where all her trauma is, and there's like a school, what did they call it? The break the cycle program, where the idea is that they're like, we're not gonna. She's been in juvie at this point because she was picked on and she pushed a kid downstairs. We learn who deserved it.
He had it coming.
Sometimes kids have it coming.
Yeah.
But it's that idea of she's being thrust into this system, this cycle of prison and violence, and this school is supposed to break the cycle. And I liked right away that the school, the orphanarium or whatever, is like filled with people who are genuinely nice.
Yeah.
I like that. I liked what they were trying to do with the three girls, where it's like they're not mean, they're not bullies. They're trying to welcome her, but they're also like
they're a little bit of bullies.
They don't understand her. Yeah,
like
well, they're like they want to call her KK, and
That's-
she's like, it's K, and they keep calling her KK.
Yeah.
And it's stuff like that where they want to like her, but they want to fit her into their little clique.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so, but I like that they weren't just like, we're bullies. You know what I mean? I like that the characters felt.
Yeah. I think they're still bullies. It's just more insidious.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to fit her into their mold. And again, that's another thing that like they never give Siobhan, who is the ringleader of those three girls, a moment of like recognizing that. Like
she just sort of joins them.
Yeah, she just sort of joins them.
I'm good now.
Like even though Kat has to tell her 5 or 6 different times not to call her KK, she still does it. And it's the same thing as when she dead names Raoul. It's like, oh, she doesn't care. She's doing this on purpose because she is a bully.
I think what they were trying to do is at the end, she's not reformed. She's just on the right track, is I think the idea.
I guess.
But it would have been nice to give us something there with that. You know? I agree. I thought Belzar was the bigger turn that really weirded me out. So Belzar Ving Rhames is a demon running at a demon amusement park.
On his belly.
On his belly. He's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, he's great.
And
Wendell and Wild are his sons who are required to keep his hair maintained because he's balding.
They're being punished for trying to open another amusement park in hell. And I love the conceptualization of hell. At least it might be one of many hells. But anyway, I mean, the visuals are always the greatest part of Henry Selick movie.
In this case, also the music, because Kat is into punk.
She's into punk.
And so
it's like a lot of punk rock. Yeah.
I did not expect the X-ray specs to show up multiple times in this. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah. It's pretty sweet. But like this conception of hell is just this giant demon floating on his back in a little sewer with an amusement park he's built on his stomach that he forces all of the souls to go to.
Yeah.
And Wendell and Wild tried to open a competing amusement park, and to punish him, they have to walk across his scalp, creating new scalp holes and filling it with his hair cream that makes his hair grow back.
And I understand why this happens, but they're basically the B plot, that whole struggle. So they go up, they find a Hell Maiden, which is Kat, who is I forget how she becomes a Hell Maiden, or if she's
they don't really explain it. It's just
she's just chosen one.
Yeah, they eat the hair cream and they see her in a vision. They reach out to her and touch her, so they kind of make contact. We're supposed to infer that sort of caused the accident because she takes a bite out of an apple that has a little 2-headed worm that kind of looks like them, I guess. And she screams and causes her dad to crash the car. So I inferred that was the moment they touched her, but I don't know. The time could move differently in hell. But anyway.
I never questioned it because it was like, again, it's fairy tale rules where I was like, she's the chosen one. Who gives a shit?
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
And so they go up and they promise to resurrect her parents in exchange for... Shit, I don't even remember. Oh, just to exist, right? She summons them.
They want to
because they're like, summon us and we'll resurrect your parents. That's what they first tell her.
They want to build their amusement park in the world of the living because they assume their dad won't see it there, so they can build that's all they want to do is build their amusement park.
Exactly.
That is their want.
Like at first, the deal they make with her is summon us, and we'll and we'll bring back your parents. That's what they start with. And then they're like, but we don't know how to bring back her parents. And they realize that the hair cream, and this is the stuff that's like also feels sweaty. The hair cream brings people back from the dead. Which again, I just sort of went like, that's a little weird, but whatever. Like,
well, it's reviving dead hair. It made as much sense as it needs to.
Yeah, exactly. They go up with Belzar's cream, and they test it on James Hong, who is the guy who runs the school, who gets murdered.
He sure does.
By the bad guys. And the bad guys are basically the prison industrial complex.
Yeah.
They're the Cracks Corporation.
Klaxon.
Klaxon.
Yeah.
And what we learn, and it's pretty obvious, is that they killed the town, essentially, economically.
They burned the brewery down to destroy all the jobs, and I
thought they were going to be responsible for the parents' death, but they didn't go that far.
No.
And I love how, this is a fun part, is the evil hierarchy. It goes demons, and then on top of that, rich people.
Yeah.
Like the wealthy people basically are like, the demons need money. And the wealthy people are like, all right, listen, you raise these people back from the dead to stack the voting of the council so we can build our prison. And then we'll give you money to make your amusement park. And Father Bess also wants money for his school.
Yeah.
So it's about money corrupting. It's very funny that I love that idea that the demons are like, nah, they're not the highest evil here.
Well, it's the demons and the church, both.
Yeah.
Because James Hong plays a priest that's in charge of this school. It's a Catholic school. Right,
and it's about the corruption there and them being corrupted by this bigger company. And then what we learn is that they say as much. They practically look at the camera because it's the whole point of the movie. Is they say like, oh yeah, that school, it's not really going to be a school. And we're not gonna reform those kids. We're gonna make a pipeline straight to our private prison. And they call out private prisons as being like, they're terrible places that just make money off of suffering, because they are. And I appreciate that the movie took the time to do that.
Yep. I'm glad kids will grow up watching this. More kids movies. Like, it's like that idea of who's a villain, and they always make it like an evil witch, and it's like, no, you don't need to make up a villain. It can just be a CEO of a private prison company. Yeah.
That is just as good, if not better.
Yeah.
So that's the villain. And it becomes this thing where they basically say to Wendell and Wild, they're like, you can't resurrect her parents or anybody else in that graveyard because they're all witnesses. And so like the Wendell and Wild, who are kind of on the moral line for most of it, are like, because they were totally gonna resurrect her parents. They weren't gonna.
Well, but it was one of my favorite jokes in the film at first, because at first they have no idea. Like, they're like, well, we can't resurrect it. They do like a quick little aside. So like, well, if you summon us, we'll give you whatever you want. She's like, well, I want my parents to come back to life. And like, let us converse for a second. Right. And it's like, we can't bring anybody back from the dead. And then Jordan Peele is like, but we know how to lie.
Yeah.
And then they lie.
Like, oh yeah.
But then of course they realize that their hair cream can resurrect things. Like, okay, sure, we'll bring her parents back. Why not?
Yeah.
But then the rich people tell them they can't. So yeah.
They have that. They're the path of least resistance. They're scamps. Where it's like, if
rascals.
It serves them to do good things, they'll do good things. They don't give a shit. So their B plot is basically they're doing all this stuff. They're working for whoever will get them closer to their amusement park.
Yeah, to build their amusement
park. Meanwhile, Belzar is in hell, and he slowly learns that they're missing. And so there's a reckoning there, right?
Yeah.
And I thought that Belzar was going to be part of the climax. And he kind of isn't.
He sure isn't. He sends a couple of winged ducks, weird duck demons.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Well, then so there's a pre-climax. Basically, the parents do come back because Raul brings them back, which I just figured the parents were never going to come back. So I was surprised by that. And the parents like go to their basement to fuck and listen to punk music.
Yeah, listen to punk rock. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's really all they do.
Yeah, and they reconnect with their daughter, and she gets like a proper goodbye, which is like, okay. Of course, we learn the cream is, as the demon says, he's like, no, you have to keep using it because it doesn't work forever. So the idea is that like, oh, okay, there's a timer here. Mm-hmm. But Belzar comes up finally and he rips off his amusement park, comes up from hell, and there's this big fucking showdown where he's giant and he's picking them up. And this is where it felt sweaty to me, because what they set up briefly is that Raoul is painting a mural in the abandoned town on all the roofs.
Yeah.
And Belzar comes up, and up until this moment, he's just been a sadistic monster who's like, you know, making his kids work for him in his hair. And then he's about to basically smash them. And then he sees the mural, and it's a mural of like someone protecting their kids. And he just has a fucking 180. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was really sweaty.
It is.
Because then he's just like, I want to help. And I was like, really?
Yeah. He has this, there's this B plot with one of the nuns at the school who's played by Angela Bassett. Her and the custodian are actually demon fighters. And
right.
The custodian,
you guys are seeing why it's sweaty, right?
Yeah.
There's so many
There's so many B plots. The custodian who looks like Marlon Brando.
Yeah. He was great. Again, I want to say all the characters I loved.
Yeah.
Everybody was a blast.
Even though it got, like I said, it's a little bloated, but all the characters are fun. So
his name is Manberg, I believe.
Yeah, I think you're right, yeah. So he has all these demons, this collection of demons that he's caught over the years with the help of Sister Angela Bassett.
And he's just likes it.
Yeah,
like,
he just
he's
loves
excited when he hears that there's an army of the dead coming.
Yeah.
When he sees the big Belzar, he's just like, oh, like he's just so into it.
Takes out a vacuum cleaner and sucks up all his hair. Yeah. So the reveal is that Belzar is like paranoid because he said so many of his kids have run away and never come home. So that's why he's being so cruel, especially to Wendell and Wild, because he doesn't want them to leave and never come back. And of course, all of his missing kids are all the demons that Manberg caught. So he releases them, which warms Belzar's heart. It grows 3 sizes, and he agrees to help him. So, I mean, that's how those 2 plot lines are resolved.
It's just, they really throw it away where they're like,
they
I need a new amusement park because I was so mad at you that I wrecked my old one. But I get why, because that's not the main plot.
No.
But I think it would have, there's a smarter way to integrate both plots. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Where like Belzar gets in the way of the rich prison people. Like, I just thought there's a more elegant way to do that.
Yeah.
And so that was like, there's just so many plots, and then it's sort of like, you know, like a Guy Ritchie movie has a bunch of plots, but then all the plots interweave. And this didn't do that. They all kind of just have their separate
They
arcs.
just kind of crash into each other at the end.
Yeah. And so that's where it was like, oh, I think you assume like, oh, this is all going somewhere. And then it kind of doesn't.
It doesn't, yeah. It just sort of, Belzar, everything becomes okay again. And then the main characters just set up to protest the opening of the private prison, which ends
and they resurrect a couple witnesses with the final hair gel.
Yeah, and so the Klaxons go to prison.
Right,
and that's pretty much it. It's like the climax is like a slapstick action sequence with them trying to stop the bulldozers, which are being driven by the skeletalized resurrected remains of the former council members. It's a perfectly fine and cute little sequence. It's just weird that like that's the ending for all of these storylines.
Exactly. Like, you think a movie about like hell and demons would kind of have a more that's the thing, is when Belzar comes up, that's how I imagine the final ending.
Yeah, I was picturing like a Night on Bald
apocalyptic moment. Yeah. And it's not. It's like a protest scene. And I was like, that's odd.
Yeah.
It's felt again, odd. Like, yeah, like I feel like they needed to reverse that. Like,
I don't know.
Have the protest scene and then have the demon come up and like have it be this big apocalyptic finale. I don't know. Again, like, it was weird because they just didn't quite know how to put the pieces together at the end. Which is all to say, like, I still think if you're a kid watching this, that's good. I think this movie is, you know, putting out positive things. It's just a little clunky in the execution.
Yeah, and every storyline is resolved. Like, they don't leave anything open-ended, but it's just, you know, a little clunky. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is equivalent of us like picking apart like, a kids movie. That's what it is. So it's like it
I
could
do like.
be.
I just jumping off the comment of it being a kids movie. I do like that this is like a kids movie with a little bit of teeth.
Yeah. Oh yeah, this is for it again. This is Henry Selick's jam.
Yeah.
Which is like, I love kids, but I want them to fear. I want them to feel fear.
I want them to feel terror.
Yeah,
No,
like
and
Coraline, it's like Jesus fucking Christ.
Yeah, it's a little complicated. It's a little more. It's a little emotionally mature than you might expect. And like you said, it's perfectly in line with some of his previous films. But I like that. I take more issue with something that's just like completely frivolous than something like this, which is very, very ambitious and mostly successful. And it's just a little over bloated and a little clunky in some areas. Like, yeah.
I also like, this is a big Henry Selick thing, which is the morality in his films. Now, I don't know if it's perfect. I'm going to start with that. But you look at Nightmare Before Christmas, you look at Coraline, and you look at this, and the general message about what's good and evil in the world is that evil isn't an absolute. Most people, even if they're kind of weird, like in Coraline is very big on this, is like there's so many weirdos.
Yeah.
But they're ultimately good people. And the idea that the weird, the actual pure evil doesn't come in the form of pure evil. It looks welcoming at first. And he likes to talk about that a lot. I would say Nightmare Before Christmas is all about that, right? Mm-hmm. It's about how like this world of like scary demons, they're all just trying to get by. So it's the idea of like weirdos, people who don't quite look like you, who might be a little frightening. They're not, talk to strangers, take candy from a van, etc.
Yeah, get in the van. Get all the way in the van.
Get in the van.
If Ethan Hawke jumps out with balloons, get into his van.
Get into his van, exactly. No, but he's very good about that, and this is no different, where it takes people who, like, at first are prickly or scary, and it's about the idea of reform to the point that even the demons are, like, they're like gonna make hell better at the end.
Yeah, they make the afterlife
like a fun
better.
Amusement park.
That both people in heaven and hell can go to, they say.
Exactly. And that's the idea, is the whole thing about prison and second chances. Mm-hmm. Like, Kat starts as like a very, like, kind of a little jerk, because you don't look at her and go, what a jerk. You know exactly why she's like she is.
Right.
And that's the point.
She's 13 and life has been shitting on her for half of her life.
Exactly. So she's not a pleasant person to talk to.
No. And she wouldn't be.
And and the people around her, the woman who brings her there, like, you can see it's the idea of compassion and her being shown compassion.
A lot of people being very patient with her. Yeah. Being very compassionate. I see why Selick and Tim Burton worked together. Because they both seem to make movies about outcasts. Like these, like Henry Selick's movies are all about outcasts.
But I would say, Selick tends to be. I don't know. I'm not going to put him and Tim Burton next to each other necessarily with their morals, but
for sure,
Selick definitely seems to pay attention to the message for that. And so it makes sense that he would team up with Jordan Peele, and it makes sense that there would be punk rock in this. Mm-hmm. And it was that realization that Henry Selick is kind of more extreme than I realized. The fact that he's making this movie about the prison industrial complex. Mm-hmm. I was like, oh shit, welcome to the fight, Henry Selick.
Welcome to the fucking resistance, Henry Selick.
Yeah. That's great. But yeah, so like that idea, I guess what I was getting at is that the reason I don't know if it's perfect or not is, for example, at the end, the bad guys still have to go to jail. And like Oogie Boogie Man still has to die. You know what I mean? Where there's still like, and I don't know if this is a positive negative message, because I do kind of agree with it, where he's saying ultimately there's just some people who need to be fucking punished. Like, there are people who are evil. There is evil in this world. It's just not, statistically speaking, it's most of the world is good. Even the scary parts. Yeah. Even the people who are quote unquote criminals. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's that idea that, like, yes, there is pure evil in the world, but it usually comes in the form of power and systems, and everybody else is kind of a victim, which isn't an absolute statement, but it's a good starting point, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's right. I mean, that's consistent through all the movies, especially the idea about things that look scary aren't necessarily that. They're not necessarily evil. And I think there's something interesting about like Oogie Boogie is like a gambling guy, right? Like he's into games of chance, but he always rigs it so that he wins. So that's like a type of villain that's sort of
another power play.
It's another power thing, and it's also related to money. So it's like he's kind of closer to the Claxons in this movie than like Other Mother in Coraline, which is a different type of insidious evil.
Other Mother, yeah, and the Other Mother, if I remember, is not sympathetic, but you kind of see her pain. If I recall, I need to rewatch that, but like
I think that's right. Yeah,
the villain, like if he can, he will make the villain not feel like two-dimensional, if possible, too.
Yeah, Oogie's pretty two-dimensional, but like...
yeah. And I think he was trying to do that with Belzar because the idea is like the love of a parent, but like Belzar felt like they didn't quite do it because Belzar, it literally like on a fucking dime becomes sympathetic.
Right, he's like he's a nice guy. He's a lord of hell who's been subjecting souls to centuries of torture on an amusement park on his belly, and then all of a sudden he's like, I'm good at it, which is whatever.
I thought they were gonna like cut a deal with him more. I thought there was gonna be more of like they reach an agreement, but he doesn't like suddenly go, oh, I love my kids. And it's like, no, you don't. And then the guy just happens to have all his demon kids.
Yeah.
And he's like, here. And it was like, oh, that's all very weird and convenient. All right.
Yeah.
So I think like the balance of having to, and that's what I mean about real world stuff is like having to introduce the idea of the prison industrial complex, which again, I'm glad they did, but I feel like the themes of reform and stuff, the stuff that Jordan Peele likes, where it's like, I want to have this be about other things. I think it didn't quite mesh with the way Henry Selick, because they wrote it together.
Yeah,
Selick and Peele.
Yeah, the screenplay. Apparently, it's based on a book that Henry Selick wrote.
Yeah, I feel like it's it says here Clay McLeod Chapman, based on the book by.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah,
I had thought the credit said it was a book that he wrote. My mistake.
He might have co-wrote it. I don't know. Yeah, the point being that, like, I love this marriage of these two. Like, I want them to do more stuff together desperately. But I think they have to figure this out, this mesh, a little more.
Yeah. Yeah. It just could have used a little bit more polish, I guess. But just because there's so many, it's not really that there's so many ideas, just a lot of different storylines going on at the same time.
Yeah. That's the thing, is the ideas are fine. It is the actual logistics of the movie. It's the, why does this character do that? Or why is this going there? Like, you know what I mean? Where it feels a lot of people turning on a dime, a lot of like conveniences. And like, it's just a little sweaty. It's awkward. And I think you felt it more than me because you were probably paying more attention to that. But I definitely felt it. I felt it more during the end than the beginning, which is kind of interesting. Because you said you felt it at the beginning.
Yeah, I guess just because at the beginning I'm more like trying to get my bearings in the story. But anyway, it does say here that it was it's an unpublished book by Henry Selick and Clay McLeod Chapman.
Ah, okay. That makes sense.
So we're both right.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, overall, I would say, yeah, this is a good movie. It needs to make a lot of money. Unfortunately, it's on Netflix.
Yeah,
so I don't know how that happens.
And it'll be impossible to measure.
But everybody should watch it.
I think his little trio of animated movies. I'm not counting James and the Giant Peach because I've never seen it.
Really?
Yeah, I've never seen it.
Oh, it's good. It's not. It's similar in that the friends are insects.
Yeah, they're these horrible insects.
And it's about a little boy.
Yeah.
It seems it's about a little boy with like terrible fucking aunts who like put him to work, and it's the same. It's the same morally. What I mean is like, it's the weirdos, you know, are not always who you think. I haven't seen Monkey Bone in a second.
Well, I'm not counting that. That's just live action. Well, I was going to say, I think his little the trifecta of animated movies we've talked about, Nightmare Before Christmas, Coraline, and this one, I think are great movies to show your kids.
Yeah, I think so too. They'll harden them a little bit.
Yeah, it's a little bit of edge to it, but like I think it introduces some complex ideas. Certainly about prejudice. And then other complicated ideas as well. Not super complicated, but I think these are good movies for kids to watch and good ideas to be introduced to them for sure.
Yeah, and this one isn't perfect, but they're all. I would say Coraline so far is the one that I would. Well, no, Nightmare Before Christmas, man. I was gonna say Coraline is like kind of the masterpiece in my head.
I think Coraline's the best story, but I think in terms of just efficiency, it's probably Nightmare Before Christmas.
Yeah, and obviously that's the classic.
Yeah.
But he needs to keep making these movies, and it would be nice for him to make them with people like Jordan Peele.
Yeah.
And it's nice to see a movie again with a diverse cast. That's not the point of it. It's just a diverse group of talent, really. And it's just really beautiful. The whole movie.
They look so good, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love the character design in this movie.
It's so good.
I love that for Wendell and Wild, their faces are kind of almost two-dimensional.
Yeah. They're also just Jordan.
They just looks like they are just caricatures of Key and Peele, but I love the way that they're done because their body, they obviously are stop motion puppets, and so their bodies are these fully 3D puppets, but the way they do their faces, each angle they turn their head at it, it looks like they're construction paper cutouts specifically for their heads that just kind of change to different illustrations as their heads turn. It's a really cool effect. I just really like the character design overall in this movie.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, that to me plays into the diversity is because everybody's if you look up the people who did the voices, they all just look more or less like the people.
Mm-hmm.
And we get to see all these all these different diverse cast of people done through this lens of Henry Selick, and so it's just this beautiful fucking film of all these characters. The nuns. I loved the nuns. They're just little lumps.
Yeah. Yep.
They're great.
Just tiny little thumbs.
Yeah, they're amazing.
Yep.
So that's the part of the beauty of it. It's just this world is so it's God. There's a lot to enjoy visually in this. And then the stuff with her fucking the teeth on her hand, and the eyes glowing, the gothic look of it, and then the punk aesthetic again with the punk music. It was just it's nice to see so many the beauty of having a lot of diverse cultures and ideas is that when it comes together, it's gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what that is. It's just so many different visual ideas put together that I fucking love it. I love it.
Yeah. It's pretty
visually.
It is. Man, what a pretty movie. So
so there's that.
Yeah.
Take just a bunch of acid and go watch it.
Oh man, yeah.
Yeah. That's what you do.
Yep. It'll be.
It'll be something.
That'll bring their parents back from the dead.
Mm-hmm.
Sprinkle some acid on them.
Just so much acid.
Just doing so much acid that this fucking graveyard comes alive.
Oh my goodness! All right.
I don't have anything else to say.
Yep. Check this out, and also you could check out our Patreon.
Yeah.
Patreon.com/gamefullyunemployed. There's exclusive podcasts on there like Tom and Jeff Watch Batman, Fox Mulder is a Maniac, Star Trek The Next Futurama, and Spiel Boys. That's all for $5 a month. You get access to all of those. For $10, you can also watch movies with us every Friday night. There's other tiers. There's custom We Just Watched episodes and so on. Check all that out.
Yeah, we also have a store. Head over to GameFullyUnemployed.com where you can find a link to our Teespring store where we have all kinds of cool original artwork and designs you can get on t-shirts, mugs, stickers, posters, all sorts of things. Slap your stop motion peepers onto that.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, slap your peepers that have been crammed in your skulls by Key and Peele. Demon Key and Peele.
I love when she's walking down the street seeing all the council members partying in their house, and then she gets to the one window, and the guy just like screams a mouthful of worms at her.
Yeah, and
fucking
then shuts
awesome.
Yeah, I liked the council members generally just being like they don't have any lines, and they're just kind of
they're just so excited to be back from the dead.
Yep, and that's another part of it is there's voter fraud in this.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a little thing about the way democracy will fuck you over. There's a lot in this. there's a prison industrial complex and boogans. What more can you ask for?
Nothing. Those are my only 2 boxes on my checklist.
Yeah.
And they both got checked, Dave.
Check.